Keina is
Okay,
here.
Keina is in. Great. Hello, Keina. Hello. Great to see you.
Hello.
And should I also accept the people who are entering?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
dobra.
And I just added your affiliation, if you don't mind, so it's easier for.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Jan.
So good morning, everybody. We are still in technical phase of the meeting, so please be patient. Let's take 2-3 minutes more, so every person who registered can join. And we will start shortly the meeting.
Herwig, yes.
Hello,
Hi.
good morning.
Good morning.
We have registered about 60 of our students. So if the system at our school breaks down, and unless, because it's too many, then we have prepared like a beamer to have just like one person and then beam it to the whole classroom.
Well,
yeah.
It's okay, but I think it's unlikely, but thanks for having this also.
Yeah, so
this backup or no option.
Yeah, I will be here all the time. And we have prepared 2 classrooms, one in Ireland, because I'm here with a group of students in Ireland, and one in Austria, just to make sure everything works.
Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mirela, you can also, I guess, ask for recording, because there is a possibility just to have a backup.
I think it's already recording, no?
Yeah, the meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, it's being
by me,
recorded.
but you can also ask, I guess, for
You think?
Let's see. Okay. We are already at 11, but still there are a lot of people joining. So
good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. In order to maintain a good flow, I will close your video for now. For Q&A, we will turn it on. Okay. Hello, Bartek. The same with you. I will thank you for joining, and I will close the video. Oksana, the same. Sorry, but if there are too many people with video on, there might be a problem with transmission. So the videos, we will ask you to turn on the videos for Q&A. So when you will be asking your questions, then of course. Hello, Agnieszka. Be careful while driving.
Hello.
Because Agnieszka, I can see she's driving a car. Okay. So I guess 1 minute more, and Mirela, you can start, because you are the boss here. You are the big boss.
People are still joining, so I would suggest maybe
wait
1 more minute, okay?
Yeah. Because this is a process. I mean, it takes some time.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Hello, Danica. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, people are still joining. Oh, so nice.
Konrad, a disbelief in your face. But of course, top scholars in migration studies are here as speakers. So, Irek, przepraszam, ale wyłączę ci ekran, żeby się nie cięło, dobra? Jak będziesz zadawać pytania, to cię włączę. Masz bardzo zresztą ciekawą tablicę, widzę z jakimś, pewnie to jest, there is probably some kind of accounting equation behind you.
Wow.
Okay.
Shall we
Well,
start?
I think people can join in the process. You know, I
Yes.
guess you
Yes.
should.
For all of us who came really on time. Hello, good morning to everyone, and really warm welcome for our online event. I'm really grateful to see so many people joining us. We are already at 144. That's really amazing to see that so many people are interested in the topic of migration and integration, and that makes me really happy and proud. My name is Mirela Marović-Omerzu, and I'm project coordinator of PRO-MOTE Project. PRO-MOTE stands for promoting opportunities, employment, and training for migrants and refugees. And it is a 2-year project that started in September last year. And we gathered really nice crowd of consortium partners from 5 countries, 6 partners from 5 countries. Those are Austria, Italy, Spain, Croatia, and Poland. Actually, the scope of the project is to, let's say, improve in general integration, migrant integration framework in Europe by doing different kind of activities. Most of those activities are online, but also like in person on the ground. So far, we have had a couple of online meetings. We are actually we are promoting migrant entrepreneurship as a way for integration. And you can also we will put in chat our project website where you can see all inspiring migrant entrepreneurship stories that we already gathered, and also a variety of solidarity projects throughout Europe. Today we are here with really, as Jan says, stars of in migration studies, star researchers, and they are going to share with you interesting projects they have been working on. And this is also the aim of the whole event is that's why we let that you see who is actually here. That is going to be like rather interactive session. But with further ado, I will switch now to I will give a floor to Jan. My colleague Jan Berzozowski, who is actually responsible for this work package, and he will introduce you to agenda and the speakers. Really, thank you for coming, for participating in this event, and enjoy in this forum.
Thank you, first of all, Mirela. Hello, everybody. A warm welcome. My name is Jan Brzozowski. I work at Jagiellonian University. And today we will be talking about immigrants' economic integration in Europe. We have a group of fantastic speakers today, but first let me just make a very short introduction on the topic and also on the basic framework of the meeting. So after my very short 5 minutes, no more introduction, we will have the first speaker. I will introduce each speaker before the presentation, and my idea is to if you could ask the questions already in the chat window, we will collect them, and at the end we will have a Q&A session, hopefully long one, so everybody could ask their questions in person, but we'll already collect them on a chat window. So, without further ado, this is okay. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes. So, of course, I mean, judging on the number of people who joined us, I think the topic is very timely, but I wanted just to basically establish the kind of framework for our discussion and for the presentations. We know actually that in spite of the significant number of migrants in Europe already, the inflow of migrants to all European Union countries, member states, is actually very limited. Every year we accept between 3 to 3.5 million people, and this number is actually not rising significantly in last few years. Currently, migrants constitute around 10% of the population of European Union. Of course, there are some variations between countries, definitely in so-called old traditional immigration countries, host countries like Germany, like Belgium, maybe also Spain and Italy. This number is between 20 and 15%. In newer countries like Poland, it is below 5%. And when we look actually at the main indicator for economic integration, so basically the employment rates, of course, migrants in some countries are slightly lagging behind, but this is not an important difference. As you can see, in most of the countries, the employment rates of immigrants is much above 50%, and in many cases is much more than 60%. We know also that migrants, and there are numerous studies that show that migrants significantly contribute to economic growth, and moreover, this is very important from our perspective today. Probably Keina will also tackle on this issue. This effect is even more pronounced in left behind regions or in economically lagging peripheral regions, with so basically poorer regions in the EU, in which immigration plays even a more important role in economic growth. Also, it is important to stress, by migrants, I meant very inclusive group. Also, forced migrants play an important role, and this is the very brand new report made by UNHCR together with Deloitte on Polish case. And as you could see, the most recent Ukrainian refugees who arrived to Poland after 2022, there is an estimate that they account for 2.7% of entire Polish GDP. So this is an impressive number for refugees who came involuntarily to Poland because they had to flee the Russian invasion. Of course, there are some problems that will be discussed also during the presentations of my colleagues. Of course, the biggest, I think, problem throughout Europe is the question of overqualification. So many immigrants who come to Europe are relatively well educated. However, they are not able to work in positions in which those qualifications are properly put at use, are properly exploited. But the biggest problem is here, obviously. So we see it, and this is a general trend in Europe. It's not only Poland, it's not only Germany, it's almost everywhere. There is a very significant shift towards right in the public debate and in the public support for right-wing parties who are anti-immigrant, who take anti-immigrant stance or are reserved towards migration. And I'm showing not only, let's say, radical politicians, but also in our case, in Polish case, Prime Minister Tusk, who was considered a very liberal politician in terms of his opinions and views, also on the topic of migration, is now adopting a very conservative and, I would say, restrictive approach towards immigration. So that's the end of my short introduction. So we see that there is an obvious need to talk about immigration in a rational way, pragmatic way. So we are not able to make everybody love migrants, but what we should do as researchers, but also social activists, public officers, we should talk about migration in a logical and reasonable way, presenting numbers, presenting pros and cons, of course, not neglecting problems associated with migration, but also stressing the benefits. And this event today, I think it's a small movement towards this direction. So first, thank you so much for listening to this very short presentation. Now, I would like to present our first speaker. So our first speaker is Ružica Simić-Banović. She is a professor in economics and at the Faculty of Law at the University of Zagreb. She earned her PhD at University of Ljubljana, but also she studied at Harvard Kennedy School, King's College London, and she has published numerous works, numerous papers in such journals as Post-Communist Economics or Equilibrium, Quarterly Journal of Economics and Economic Policy. And she is currently running, together with her Croatian colleagues, a very interesting project on refugee entrepreneurship in Croatia. Ružica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jan. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on your time zone. Thank you, Jan, for the introduction. So I'll jump in directly on the topic. What I want to say as an intro is that 7 years ago, when I started researching this topic, Croatia was still an immigration country with very homogeneous population. So researching immigration was rather exotic. And we only had a couple of publications to rely on. And I'm happy that those researchers are actually now also in the event, now in the audience, and I hope they'll join the discussion later. What we want to also present is that, and I guess you can find it very relatable to your own countries, that comparing to pre-COVID times, what we have now in Croatia is that we have more third country nationals than ethnic minorities when it comes to numbers. There is the most recent estimate. So things have really rapidly changed. Right now in Europe, and why this topic is not only relevant for Croatia, is we have more than 4 million people under temporary protection. When it comes to absolute numbers, most of Ukrainians are in Germany, almost a third of them. But when it comes to the ratio of temporary protection holders from Ukraine relative to the population, Czechia is the country leading the list, then Poland, and then Estonia. Croatia is somewhere in the middle with 7 Ukrainians per 1,000 inhabitants. So what we already know from the research and also from our everyday practice and what we see around us is that entrepreneurship, refugee entrepreneurship included, is one of very vital for socioeconomic integration and also for fostering transnational ties. In this case, between Ukraine and host countries. Now there is a rather big shift across Europe and among Ukrainian entrepreneurs that initially they actually started serving the Ukrainian diaspora. But now, being longer on the market and being longer in the host countries, they're actually targeting local customers and other European markets. So now there's now an increasing number of cases where actually Ukrainians are being the franchisors as well for their nationals, for their compatriots, and also broadening the wider EU and North American markets. In addition, and Poland is one of the best cases, every 10th new business in 2024 was started by Ukrainians, which I think is a great indicator of to what extent they're actually integrated already. So when talking about Croatia, and let me rephrase this famous thought and that said, in terms of labor market, we needed workers, we looked for them, but we actually welcomed people. And in terms of entrepreneurship, I would say we opened our doors to refugees from Ukraine, and we were met actually by inspiring entrepreneurs. So I'll just shortly present you a couple of Ukrainian entrepreneurs in Croatia, both in my neighborhood, the wider neighborhood in Zagreb, but also at the seaside. Anastasia, who just gave birth to a baby, so Zagreb-born Thea, owns a flower shop. So she has a graduate diploma in management, but her dream was always to have a flower boutique. She's famous for her deliveries any time of the day, even on national holidays or Sunday evening, because Anastasia says, well, if you have an anniversary on Sunday and you want to celebrate it in the dinner time, you want to get the flowers then. She originates from the city that is the longest city in Europe, and for her, Zagreb is just a small market, so her deliveries are always prompt. Then we have Yuri. As you know, Croatia is a very sunny country, but we are not the best at using that source of energy. So Yuri was the one detecting it. He lives at the seaside and he has already installed many solar panels on private clinics in ports at the Croatian seaside, but also on many manufacturing stores. So Olena has just finished her education for the women entrepreneurs at the Faculty of Economics in Zagreb, funded by the US Embassy. She already got quite esteemed because she's a physiotherapist specialized in spine problems, but she has already employed several third country nationals, mostly from Asia. Anastasia at the seaside, and you can see the excerpt from the article about her in the local newspaper. She's a pastry chef, and she opened a very nice coffee shop in the central street in Rijeka. And finally, Andre with his Kraus house. He is a construction engineer, having a construction company both in Ukraine and in Croatia now. And with his wife, who is an architect, now working in the local office, and 4 kids, he lives on the island of Brač and very close to one of the most famous beaches in Croatia, that is the Golden Horn, Zlatni Rat, for those of you who've been here. So since I'm from academia, I need to mention the methodology, but I'll be very brief about it, I promise. We use the secondary sources, we use the database of the companies that were funded from 2022. And most of these companies, as you can see, were established on the coast, 30% in Zagreb, and the rest, and then 16% in the other parts of Croatia. Most are micro enterprises. And 20 companies have an annual revenue for over 15,000 euros. Thanks to the EBRD support, we conducted the research, and also thanks to SWOYA Association. Natalia is also here with us. We got focus groups with stakeholders. We had several in-depth interviews, and we are about to complete an online survey among entrepreneurs of Ukrainian origin in Croatia. So that is how we got very, very recent information. So what I want to share with you, in addition to those stories, is that when starting a business in Croatia, Ukrainian refugees had a list of very similar or the same problems as for some reason. Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you are muted for a second, but I don't know why.
Okay,
Everything
cool.
fine now.
Okay, thank you. Similar to other immigrant entrepreneurs, the problems they're addressing all of the time are sort of a litmus paper also for our policymakers. So at the beginning, they mostly witness the lack of information on how to start a business. And then additionally, when they want to grow a business, there is not sufficient information on the other steps when growing the business, but mostly on the possibilities to get some subsidies, either regarding the deployment or regarding the development of the business, loans included. In terms of initial capital and information how to use all those incentives, there are another set of issues. And then finding a location and an ideal spot for them was another problem. What Svoya has done, I think the most part of it is actually providing the language courses and trying to provide as many information as possible, both in terms of local partners like accountants, lawyers, public notaries, but also in terms of encouraging the networking, encouraging the sharing the information that in a way compensated for the lack of formal sources or for the lack of visibility of formal sources. And what we also noticed as actually a key problem is that so far we know that the temporary protection will expire in March 2026. So for business development, having that notion and being an entrepreneur actually means that you develop your business in uncertain circumstances. So in case there is a final expiration of the temporary protection in March 2026, the Ukrainian entrepreneurs will face all the rules that we have by our Foreigners Act, which are rather discriminatory. And I won't list them due to the lack of time, but just to mention, then in that case, they need to have Croatian employees, they need to have people employed of 1.5 average salary of the Croatian statistics and so on. So it's quite burdening for them to develop their business in those circumstances. So, sorry. Okay. As I said, that's sort of the major threat for the Ukrainian businesses in Croatia. In addition to that, and similar to other European countries, and despite all the shortages of the qualified workforce, the qualification recognition is very, very slow in Croatia. It takes mostly 6+ months to get the qualifications recognized. And also the cooperation with most of the chambers is not really easy, and they're not really welcoming even the workforce that we have the shortage of. In addition to that, and also we compared it with some other smaller groups, the advocacy activities of the Ukrainian entrepreneurs are not really strong. They're almost inexistent. They're actually focused on their core business. They do their work, they employ people, they care about their families, and they mainly don't have time nor the opportunities to advocate for their rights in Croatia. And in addition to that, some of them need to deal with double taxation issues. And finally, considering that this population in Croatia is actually more than 80% of women and kids, there is a lack of adequate care facilities for children, people with special needs, and the elderly. And that is also one of the issues that we as the locals face as well. So somebody coming over without his or her own safety net is an even bigger issue. So to conclude, a very big number of the Ukrainian refugees, entrepreneurs in particular that we talked to, had already previously stayed in Croatia as tourists. So they already had an idea of the country. What we also noticed, and it's very important in terms of entrepreneurial climate, it's that they're more mobile than the resident population. Not only within Croatia, but also in terms of international mobility. And that is how they also employ fellow Ukrainians when they need some specific qualification. They are shown to be very hardworking and very proactive. And only 10% of them now live in that collective accommodation, so the one provided by the state. The rest of them integrated rather quickly into the local communities all over Croatia. And finally, they're really able to recognize and exploit entrepreneurial opportunities in different ways. So in line with that, what we already know about the immigrant entrepreneurs, they can really provide a very good role models and also provide very favorable spillover effects for the local society. And let me once more mention Svoja as an association that you may want to think of for those of you who don't have to that extent developed association helping helping Ukrainians that came over to your country. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. I myself probably would have a couple of questions, but please, for everyone who is interested in asking Różica questions, please write them now in chat or during the next presentations, as on the end we will have opportunity to ask the speakers about the research and experiences. So thank you, Róžica, and that's impressive because you made it on time. So it's a rare thing among the academics. Actually, you were even within the time frame, so that's brilliant. I want to learn how it's possible. Our next speaker is Gianluca Pupedu, who is a professor at Cagliari University in beautiful Sardinia. Gianluca is a specialist in management mostly and migrant entrepreneurship. Has conducted research in various interesting universities in Europe, including Norwegian Business School, Audencia Business School in France, and he has published, among others, in Academy of Management Proceedings. So, Gianluca, please, you can start your presentation.
So first, thank you so much, Leon, for inviting me in this fantastic seminar. As you mentioned, I'm going to address this hot topic that is migrant entrepreneurship. Via a systematic literature review I conducted within my stay in Audencia Business School. As you said, I was abroad for several periods of time, and I feel a migrant myself. Since coming from an island, since Cagliari is the main city of an island, it's really easy and really common to move abroad. And in fact, just the continent, as we call Italy, for us, it's another country. So we feel migrants ourselves and myself too. And I experienced this kind of dual embeddedness that migrant experience. And this systematic literature review has been written together with Miruna Radu Lefebvre, and she is a professor, editor of entrepreneurship and regional development, and she teaches in Nantes at Audencia Business School, together with Francesca Cabido at the University of Cagliari. So this is a systematic literature review, and this systematic literature review will be followed by a future research agenda. And before addressing the systematic literature review, I would like to say a couple of words concerning the migrant situation in Italy that is really tough. The main press talks about this, and I just saw this article in April saying that over 3,500 migrants died in 10 years and going to Italy. And I mean, it is quite sad. And in terms also of the policies that are addressing migrants in Italy. So I feel that Italy is not exploiting it's not seeing the potential of migrants. Sometimes they are considering just like a threat. There is now the construction of these hubs in Albania. It looks like our kind of country wants somehow to get rid of migrants, and they have such a huge potential. And to address this, it happened to me to watch this movie. And this is an Italian movie called Io Capitano, Me Captain. And it totally hit me because, we don't know some of us don't know the stories behind this kind of migrants and all the challenges they go through to reach a better life, especially in Europe or in the US. Because it seems so easy. We see them, for example, in Sardinia, I see them like selling out stuff at the beach because they work as beach vendors, or because they don't have a kind of really fancy positions, let's say the ones I know in Sardinia or in Italy, since we are not in Scandinavia and regulations are different. But this movie was really cool, and I think it helped Italian to see their struggles. Because this, I think, migrant was from Nigeria, I don't know, and it looks so easy for him to come to Europe to see how, like, yeah, to come to Europe because he knew he just had to pay and he would have just arrived to Europe in such an easy way. But then through the movie, we see that it's not so easy, since its imagination of Europe is something completely different. For him, Europe is like something so cool where everything works, where he is going to be to get the best career ever. But then it goes through challenges, because then it gets imprisoned in one prison because there is this kind of mafia and so on. And then it gets to Italy, and all its acceptations are kind of blurred now because he knows that the situation is completely different. Because this path to Italy is about death, it's about no, to Europe, it's about corruption in Africa, and so I really empathized with migrants watching this movie because it is a real story. So why this topic matter? It's just because, as Jan said, migrant entrepreneurs, they are key drivers of economic growth because they fill market gaps, because they bring out innovation, but they face major barriers, major challenges, and this is clear. Bureaucracies, foreignness, discrimination, limited funding, weak networks, and in this sentence, I just name a few of them, since it's also legal restriction, it's also language barriers, but there is somebody trying to help them. That is business support organization, BSOs, that aim to reduce all these challenges. But how effective are they? What does the literature say is addressed with this systematic literature review? So this systematic literature review addresses three main questions, let's say three main gaps. And the first one is who supports migrant entrepreneurs and who benefits from these support mechanisms? Then how do support mechanisms enable migrant entrepreneurs to launch and growth ventures? What are the outcomes for migrant entrepreneurs and supporting entities? So we tried with this paper that is on review for entrepreneurship and regional development for a special issue of the journal. We try to make clarity in this context. So the methodology is a systematic literature review, of course, and the search strategy was focused on three main components: so organizational context, and all these synonyms: target of business support, so migrant focus, since we targeted migrants, refugees, diaspora, and all these keywords helped us to get this kind of sample. So from 861 papers to 620 till the final sample that gathers 105 articles. It's just about peer reviews articles, starting from the very beginning, so 2003 till 2024. And the novelty is that we just decided to consider ABS ranked journals, so from 3 to 4 stars, also to make the sample kind of not so wide, let's say. So it was about screening, coding, thematic clustering, and we came to this conceptual framework that I named organizing framework. And this was structured based on the three research questions. So who, how, what outcomes. And these are the three core dimensions. This is a kind of summary of the paper because there are subcategories that don't appear actually, but yeah, because it's just a simple version for this presentation. But there are the supporting actors and supported actors for the who question, then supporting mechanism enablers for the how question, and then the part concerning the outcomes with business launching and business growth. So I talk about migrant entrepreneurs, but migrant entrepreneurs are also refugees, asylum seekers, transnational entrepreneurs. So these words gathers all these, let's say, displaced people. And yeah, the subcategories, for example, considering migrant, immigrant, are their nationalities, where do they come from for training, if it is formal training, informal, and then personal enablers, yes, if it is physical enablers, a physical personal enabler, digital, hybrid, and so on, but we see them now. So BSOs are incubators, accelerators, chambers of commerce. Then networks really help migrants. So we are dealing with the who question. And then training and education, such as universities, helping migrants grow and launch their ventures. And since I am here in France, I'm realizing that there are so many incubators like providing so much help for migrants. So it's very good. There is Singa, there is an incubator here in Nantes, and it provides great help. So who benefits? So refugees, asylum seekers, transnational diaspora groups, and all these migrants, they come from Europe, North America, Asia, Africa, even even Australia. Actually, they come to and they and they go to these countries actually. And the trend, the main trend is that the first generation migrants, they go to ethnic markets, while second generation, they just focus on mainstream sectors. So home country, yeah, it's mostly China, India, and host countries, of course, yes, the US, and this black country is India, so meaning that they all go there, considering the research, but even Australia, because for migrants, of course, coming from Asia, it is maybe easier to, or it is of course easier to get to Australia, and then US always following the kind of American dream. So how training, mentoring, coaching, financing, networking, all these are the numbers of articles dealing with this topic. So training, how are they trained how are migrants trained to get to a country? So are they trained before coming to a specific country, after the mentoring, coaching, financing? How do they get money? This is important. Formal, in a formal way, in an informal, and here family plays a great role, but still networking because of the dual embeddedness with migrants, feeling living okay in one country, but still with so many contacts with their home country. So, and then the enablers part, here I follow Bernstein et al. 2021 paper. So I consider the personal enablers, incidental, community-based enablers. So personal or family mentors, incidental enablers are people that migrants can accidentally meet, for example, in a party, in watching a YouTube video, then the community. But still here, digital support remains underexplored because I divide them into physical, digital, and hybrid, but physical plays a great role, but here it's underexplored. And it's about, metaverse and this kind of technological settings that aim to bridge online and digital. No, physical and online, sorry. So the kind of online. Then the outcomes, of course, are business launching on the one hand and business growth. So this paper were about launching a firm, but even about growing a firm, and it's something completely different. So which are the motivations that follow the kind of path of migrants to start their firm? Maybe because they want they want to find a place in the world, so it's just about a kind of sense of belonging to a kind of sense to show to everyone that they exist, they have their own skills, and yes, but maybe they just have an original idea and that's it, and they just want to bring it out because maybe they have this idea and this firm in their home country and they want to bring it to the host country, and then business growth with economic and sectoral mobility, networks and collaboration, innovation. So they want to grow their firms with the help of networks, of course, too. So future research, gaps and questions is the end of the paper, where we see that this field is, of course, expanding, but there are a lot of gaps. We identified 12 of them, 12 gaps, and they were grouped under 3 clusters, but we will see there will be a fourth cluster. So gaps based on the who, how, and what question. And one of the main gaps is that the articles addressing psychological safety are kind of missing. So this is one of these main gaps, followed by research questions. And then this the kind of fourth part of the gaps of the future research. As I said, it groups 3 clusters. On the one hand, who, how, and what, but there is still why. And why is the question that we didn't address within the paper. So why? It is actually essential to support migrants in entrepreneurship, and how can tailored initiatives address their unique challenges? So this I think a great question. So we addressed how to support them, but still, why should they be supported? And this is, I think, a question that should be, of course, answered because migrants deserve this. And to conclude, we got to key theoretical contributions, such as the new organizing framework on migrant entrepreneurs support, then emphasis on digital enablers, that it is what I said it's missing. There is digital, physical, but it would be cool maybe to create kind of courses within the metaverse, with then using QR codes and so on to kind of bind physical and digital in this great way. And then the practical implication, of course, for policymakers to create tailored programs, to help migrants thrive. Then for practitioners, of course, for researchers, just to see the potential of of every migrant, of course. And yeah, thank you very much. I wrote my email for if you have questions that you can even type here, as Ian said. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gianluca. I must say I'm fortunate because I have read also the full paper with your results. But I think this was a very nice and concise overview of what we know already from research about migrant entrepreneurship in Europe and also beyond. Okay, if you have questions to Gianluca, don't hesitate to write them in a chat window. And now let's move to our third speaker. So Dr. Keina Espinera. She is a professor at Faculty of Sociology at University of A Coruña in beautiful Galicia in Spain. And she is a specialist in migration studies. She's a researcher with a part of IMISCO International Migration Research Network. And her work addresses such issues as migration, asylum, border policies, and currently she has completed a project on exactly the impact of immigrants on the peripheral rural areas, regions in Spain. So I'm really looking forward to listen to your presentation. Keina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ian. Thanks for the kind invitation to participate in this forum. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, but I think you can start the because we can see the PowerPoint, but you could start the presentation so that the full screen will be visible.
Okay, 1 second, because I had some trouble. Sorry for this. Yeah.
Take your time. Don't worry.
It seems it is now.
Yeah. Now it's okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the cases I'm going to present are part of findings from the research project investing in welcoming spaces in Europe, revitalizing shrinking areas by hosting non-EU migrants. This was a Horizon 2020 program that concluded in June last year, so it is quite recent. The overall objective was to identify and analyze welcoming initiatives for migrants that could simultaneously contribute to the revitalization of shrinking territories and to the creation of more inclusive and diverse local communities. Here you can see the link of the website, so you can access and see some of the publications, the reports we elaborated during our research. The project brought about together universities and civil society organizations from 5 European countries: the Netherlands, Germany, Poland, Italy, and Spain. The results we found varied considerably from one country to another, reflecting their different migration contexts, an aspect that we are also seeing here, right, in this forum. It is crucial to understanding the dynamics at play. While in countries in Northern Europe tend to receive significant flows of people seeking international protection and asylum, in southern countries like Spain, labor migration remains the predominant form of mobility. Our research specifically focused on shrinking regions, areas undergoing economic and demographic decline. Many of these territories have been identified by European institutions as peripheral, remote, or marginalized. In the case of Spain, this dynamic is particularly visible in rural regions at the Central Plateau, where depopulation, economic stagnation, and limited access to services converge to create significant challenges. On this map, you can see the locations where we conducted our fieldwork. It is also important to note that compared to other countries, the movement of migrants to rural areas in Spain is a relatively recent phenomenon. As since Spain began receiving significant numbers of migrants, especially from the 90s onward, most newcomers have settled in urban centers. However, over the past decade, we have seen a growing trend of migration toward rural areas. As of today, nearly 10% of the rural population in Spain is of foreign origin, reaching 16% among young adults from 20 to 39 years old. Across all our case studies, the largest migrant group comes from South America, followed by nationals from North and West African countries. Here you can see the figure. Also, by examining Spain's institutional and legal frameworks, we observed that government strategies in shrinking rural areas, both national and regional, have largely focused on demographic concerns, often with a nativist slant centered on rural repopulation. However, in recent years, migration has gained prominence within these agendas. There is also a notable shift in how labor market integration is being framed. While Spain has generally maintained a welcoming stance toward immigration, institutions are now more explicitly recognizing the economic value of labor migration. This positive framing comes even as anti-immigrant rhetoric from the far right becomes more visible, as Jan pointed out at the beginning in the introduction of this forum. Also, in Spain, from an institutional point of view, labor migration is increasingly seen as key to driving economic growth and keeping the welfare system afloat. We see this clearly in recent immigration reforms that make it easier to recruit workers directly from countries of origin and open up more legal pathways for residency and regularization. But it is true that these approaches have also faced criticism, especially from academic circles. They are often seen as instrumentalist, still focused mainly on meeting the economic needs of the receiving state of Spain, rather than on the rights and aspirations of migrants themselves. This becomes even more evident in rural regions where agriculture and livestock remain key economic sectors. Here, the dominant model of labor integration has relied heavily on large-scale intensive operations like industrial farms and greenhouses. And in many cases, these jobs are defined by harsh conditions and high levels of exploitation. It is precisely within this context that the good practices I'm about to share become so relevant. They offer a different way of doing things, we think, and they offer an alternative model of labor market integration that focuses on entrepreneurship and self-employment with a strong backing from public institutions. So let's start with the first case in the province of Soria. In the broader effort to combat rural depopulation, the province of Soria is seeing a rise in public initiatives aimed at attracting new residents. These efforts typically involve providing housing and employment opportunities, often coordinated by local governments in partnership with third sector organizations. While this model of reception is well structured and resource intensive, it tends to cast migrants primarily as passive beneficiaries or service users. However, within these revitalization strategies, more participatory approaches are beginning to emerge, such as shared land access or co-farming schemes that aim to revive abandoned agricultural activities. One particularly relevant example is the manual extraction of resin. Small municipalities with fewer than 900 inhabitants have begun public tenders that grant axonal pine forest or resin tapping. This traditional practice, long in decline, has been reactivated in recent years and is now gaining traction, especially among newly arrived migrants. Many of them are seeking alternatives to precarious jobs. Increasingly, they are registering as self-employed and taking part in these public tenders, allowing them to work independently in resin extraction. So this model of small-scale entrepreneurship within the agricultural sector challenges two prevailing narratives. First, the notion that migrants are simply a source of cheap labor, and second, the idea of the rural as a passive recipient territory. Instead, these initiatives create new pathways for social mobility and autonomy. In this context, for instance, time and autonomy become critical resources, enabling self-determination and deeper community engagement, which in turn foster the well-being, the social cohesion, and a stronger sense of local belonging. So our interviews revealed two particularly important themes. First, a process of upward mobility. Many of the resin workers previously endured precarious conditions in large-scale agricultural operations, conditions often criticized by labor unions. And second, the transition to self-employment has brought not only better income, but also greater autonomy and, crucially, more free time. This increased availability has allowed individuals to participate more actively in local life and deepen their connection to the region. So what makes this case particularly compelling is that it encourages us to think beyond improved working conditions and consider the social and emotional dimensions of migrant well-being. It shifts the focus to civic engagement and belonging, the ability to build relationships, contribute to community life, and truly feel part of the place one inhabits, right? And in this regard, also to note that what sets this model apart from other self-employment initiatives is its collective dimension, because access to land is mediated through municipal tenders. Participants must engage in regular meetings to share information and make collective decisions, especially when negotiating prices with resin buyers. These participatory dynamics are fostering perhaps more horizontal forms of organization, which in turn could contribute to a deeper sense of territorial belonging. The second case illustrates how a broader institutional ecosystem can support migrant entrepreneurship and cultural expression through a multi-level governance approach. Let's turn to a town of about 6,000 inhabitants in Galicia, Celanova. This example demonstrates how initiatives driven by different levels of government and civil society can come together in a complementary and coordinated way. The process began with the regional government's return program, designed to encourage the resettlement of people, primarily of Latin America origin and often descendants of historic Galician immigrants, especially from Venezuela. This program provides financial assistance during the first months of arrival in Galicia to support both integration and entrepreneurial activity. As new residents settled in, the need for spaces of social support and cultural expression became apparent. And this gave rise to migrant-led organizations like Asociación Canta Claro, headed by Venezuelan community members. With the support from the local government, the association offers training, guidance, and opportunities for civic participation while also maintaining ties to their cultural roots. At the economic level, the municipality has also launched a co-working space in collaboration with public institutions such as the School for Industrial Organization and the Galician Institute for Economic Promotion, so institutions that operate at the regional level. This initiative, the co-working space, has incubated new businesses, a quarter of which are now led by migrants. Additional support comes from the SHARE Association, which represents small entrepreneurs, including newcomers, and has contributed to job creation through services such as home delivery, especially demanding, right, in rural areas. And complementing these efforts is the work of the Local Action Group for Rural Development, which channels European leader funds to boost local entrepreneurship. So together, these actors have created a dynamic support system. You can see here in this slide a visual summary that maps out the convergence of these initiatives across different territorial scales, local, regional, and county. It highlights the interplay of public and private funding and active involvement of a diverse network, government bodies, business, civil society organizations, and the migrants themselves. So the strength of this polyhedral model, we call it like that, polyhedral model, lies in its capacity for interconnection. The alignment of social, economic, and institutional initiatives fosters a kind of synergy that multiply their impact. In practice, the success of one program can enhance the effectiveness of others, generating a cumulative and sustained effect that facilitates deeper settlement and integration of newcomers. So what makes this model particularly compelling is its adaptability, perhaps, and its forward-looking orientation. By combining institutional support with grassroots engagement, it allows for tailored responses to local needs. And migrants are not just beneficiaries, they become active contributors to the economic and social revitalization of the territory. So to conclude, the cases analyzed show that rural areas in Spain are far from passive spaces, right? Are more than recipients of migrant labor. Instead, they emerge as, or they start to emerge as territories with transformative potential, where the labor integration of migrants goes well beyond economic inclusion. It fosters, or it should foster rootnets and community participation. Models such as the communal land management in Soria and the collaborative ecosystem in Galicia demonstrate at some point how combining public ownership, entrepreneurship, and cooperation creates new forms of social inclusion and economic autonomy, challenging these traditional rural employment dynamics. However, also important to note that these advances face significant challenges like persisting inequalities, the lack of inclusive governance structures, and the absence of coordinated state policies threaten to some point the sustainability, right, and the fairness of these processes. So to conclude, the key lesson is that welcoming and integrating migrants in rural areas requires a polyhedral approach that connects diverse actors and territorial levels, blends public and private resources, and acknowledges the varied trajectories and rights of migrants. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was extremely interesting. Well, those two examples, I think they are not only very relevant for our meeting today, but as I told you before, me and Konrad are engaged in a Horizon project, which investigates the impact of immigrants on peripheral regions in Europe, and definitely we need to have a closer look on your deliverables of the project and your research results, because this is very much in line with what we are trying to achieve, not only in Poland but also in Spain. So many thanks for that. Of course, for all of you who have questions to Keina, please start asking them on chat. And I already have seen that some of the previous speakers were impatient and started to respond. That's fine, but it doesn't free you from the obligation to answer the question at the end anyway. So, but it's good that we have some interaction in the chat as well. So now, so thanks again, Keina. And now I would like to introduce my very good friend, Professor Konrad Pędziwiat. Konrad is a sociologist of migration and religion studies, and he is a professor at Krakow University of Economics. He is a deputy director of Center of Advanced Studies on Population and Religion at this university, and he was involved in numerous projects on migrants integration, both on local, regional, and national levels. So he has a profound experience in this topic, and he has published in numerous journals, top journals on migration issues. So Konrad, please start.
Thank you very much, Jan, for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be among all great scholars working on issues of migrants integration. In this short time allocated to me, I'm going to share some of the ideas for improving migrants integration. Before doing so, I will very briefly sketch a general sort of picture of Poland as a fairly new immigration destination for economic and also forced migrants. So the economic migrants have been coming to Poland for decades, but we see a significant increase in the number of people coming to Poland, mainly within the last 10 years. And one of the key factors that have contributed to this very important migration transition turning Poland from a country of predominantly of emigration to a country of immigration was the beginning of the war in Ukraine. And as you know, this beginning of the war did not happen just in February 2022, but it started in 2014 with the occupation of Crimea and the beginning of the war in Donbass. So this is the time when you see, if you analyze the flows of migration from Ukraine, you very clearly see that before 2014, majority of Ukrainians, if they were going abroad to earn better money and to for economic sort of purposes, they were going to Russia. One of the persons who was doing this, for example, is current President Volodymyr Zelensky, who made his small fortune making films and being entertaining Russians above all. So at the moment, the situation is, and from 2014 onwards, basically the number of migrants have been increasing. I'll show you this on the example of Asians. But here you can see that that last year we had almost a million persons who had resident cards, and they are basically scattered around the whole country, while initially it was only mainly big cities. Nowadays, economic migrants live all across the Polish territory, and they are very important workforce, not only in big cities but also in smaller towns and also even in rural areas. Some of the key factors obviously contributing to this presence of migrants across countries is quite dynamic economic growth. You can see this on the example of Asians. Here I draw to a recent paper which I published with Patrick Kugel on Asians in Poland, and the only group which we do not take into account here are the Asians from West Asia. But this, as you can see, this is a very significant increase in the number of, especially people coming from South Asia. The largest group among them are Indians, and they are growing very rapidly. You can see 2014, so around 10 years ago, there was less than 2,000 of Indian migrants in Poland, and now we have above 23,000. Another very important group within this Asian are people from such countries as from Central Asia, for example, from Vietnam. It's quite sort of old also migration, but also a new one. And you have people from Uzbekistan, very important, very rapidly rising group of migrants from Philippines, from Indonesia. As you can see, all Asians, excluding West Asians, it's above 90,000. And they constitute around 10% of migrants in Poland. But if you exclude Ukrainians, they will make up almost 23% of migrants in Poland. And I'm mentioning them because they are a very important, different group. They are visible sort of minority group. And here, this table shows the permits to work in Poland issued to Asians between 2014 and 2024, and you can see how the work permits are basically part of the process of obtaining a visa. It's not necessarily these people who obtained the work permits arrive in the country, but you can see who is especially interested in and where these permits go. So you can see, for example, in 2024, one of the largest groups of people who received this work permits were people from Philippines. So it's one of the very rapidly growing groups of migrants in Poland, and you can see that India is obviously very high there, but Nepal is just behind India. So it's also a very important group and dynamically growing group of migrants in Poland. So some of this data I show you in order to show how this economic migrants group, how dynamically it is diversifying. And but what is one of the key developments in terms of Polish migration is obviously arrival of a very large group of forced migrants from Ukraine. Poland has been receiving forced migrants for decades, one may say. Already in the 90s, Poland has received very numerous, it's estimated that even up to 100,000 persons from coming from Russia, but the vast majority of them were the Chechens escaping the First and the Second Chechen War. And many other people were were applying for international protection in the past. Here you can see in the right sort of corner that the figures showing how many people applied for international protection in the last years, and you can see that particularly in 2015 and 16 we had a significant increase, and the latest was the increased last year when 17,000 people applied. Within this, there were a very significant group of Ukrainian men who were trying to legalize in a way their status in Poland. But the vast majority of forced migrants living in Poland, almost you can see 1 million, and it has been fairly stable, a slightly higher number, but it's fairly stable. It consists above all of women with children, and we see in the last years we work with Jan and Marcin Stonowski on detailed sort of analysis of this situation, and we show, among others, how the situation, how this group has been diversifying. There's increasing number of men coming, but especially young men just before becoming adults. So this group of between 18 and 21, it's particularly rapidly growing, and it's twice as big as the same group of women. So there's we have some theories of why is it happening. A very important group of migrants in Poland are also students. So we have we've got over 100,000 students, foreign students. You particularly see them in such cities like Krakow and Warsaw and in other places. They constitute a very important group who are also a significant number of them stays in the country. One of the important developments within the last years has been the change of perception of migrants in Poland. And here I show some data from our friends from Opola who have analyzed the situation, the support for the reception of forced migrants from Ukraine in Poland. And you can see how this perception, support for the reception of forced migrants has been declining in the last years from 72% of people who were sort of in favor to slightly above 50% 2 years later. So it's and increasing also number of people views the presence of forced migrants as negative rather than positive. So while in the past you can see people were viewing their presence as important in terms of filling in gaps in labor market, learning tolerance. For example, this indicators have been declining, and an increasing number of people see no positives in the presence in the country. And there are various reasons for this. I believe one of the key problems is the fact that the government does not have a cohesive integration strategy, and above all, it's not able to communicate this strategy, even if there is one. It is not able to communicate this strategy to the society, and it is not promoting the contribution of migrants to all spheres of life. As mentioned by Jan at the very beginning, this super recent 2 days ago study, which was released by UNHCR, which showed that very important contribution of Ukrainian refugees to Polish GDP, and there are other studies as well showing how importantly they've managed to integrate in the Polish labor market, and there is unfortunately not enough communication about it. What we have had, especially within the last months, was a festival of basically festival of saying how negative things about migrants, and basically steering the moral panic around the presence of all kinds of migrants in Poland, including Ukrainian migrants. And although we have many examples and proofs of also Russian intervention in this processes, not enough is being done in order to prevent that, and not enough is being done, I believe, in order to promote this positive contribution of migrants to all spheres of life. Which should be done in much better way by the government, because without this, without a good, in a way, atmosphere for integration, it is much more difficult to actually do the integration. And in terms of some concrete, more sort of concrete actions that I believe are important in order to improve integration of migrants, one of them, very important one, is to speed up the processes of legalization of migrants in the country. Here I show you some recent data on how much time the migrants need to wait in order to obtain their resident cards. And the situation is dire. In some regions of Poland, migrants, you may see, for example, and I don't know even what is the reason why in Opole you need to wait almost 600 days in order to obtain your resident cards, and this is one of the extreme cases, but there are many others which are similar, and this is really critical, because the migrants are, especially within the new legislation that is just being implemented, people who do not have the rights should not be able to legally work. So in a way, and this brings me to the third point, to prevent irregularities in employment of migrants. This actually, the new regulations which are being now implemented, I believe, are going to do exactly the opposite. They are not going to prevent the irregularities in employment, which are there also in terms of Polish citizens. We have certain sectors of economy which are which have a very large sort of percent of irregularity. One of them is, for example, care. Another is building sector, and in order to, and there should be good, and there are good ideas from other countries how to prevent and how to promote regular employment of migrants for the sake of everybody, for the sake of the country and obviously and migrants themselves. We have, as I said, one of the key elements is to have a cohesive sort of strategy. We have since the end of last year, we have some kind of strategy of generally migration strategy, but its migration strategy has actually very little to say about the integration, or not enough. And one of the elements which is very interesting in this are centers for integration of foreigners or migrants, which were in a way started in Poland yet before the current government took power. They were started by Law and Justice Party, and this is an element which is I believe not adequately used, and first it's not adequately promoted. So there were many cases when me and Jan had to go to the media and explain the basics, that centers for integration of foreigners are not centers for refugees, and that the purpose for the centers is to, above all, improve the cultural capital, improve the language and also employment skills of migrants who are already legally living in Poland, and this has been used and abused. But I believe one of the key problems was that it was not properly communicated, it was not properly explained to the society what are the key and how important is the role of the centers. And within the centers also the process of acknowledgement of the different qualifications that migrants have it's being sort of implemented, and it should be done in much more greater sense. And to end, because my time is up, one of the important things, if you look into the general population of migrants in Poland, you will see that a lot of people have short-term resident permits. In order to properly promote integration of migrants, I think we should also ease regulations to obtain Polish citizenship, and above all, we should encourage naturalization and show a possibility to obtain regularization, and for the sake of the host society, we should promote to much larger extent the naturalization that is being done at the moment. So these are just a few ideas, and I'm more than happy to discuss them with you later during Q&A. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Konrad. Once again, if you have questions to Konrad, please type them in a chat. And as we are slightly late, I will just jump to another last speaker. So Inna Melnikowska, she's a professor at Central European University in Vienna. She has a PhD in political sciences from Free University of Berlin. She was also a postdoctoral fellow at Harvard University. She specializes in international and comparative political economy, but also recently on migration studies. She is currently co-principal investigator in a consortium project, Refugee Entrepreneurship in the EU, Sparking Grassroots Innovation, Civic Empowerment and Transnational Connectivity. Inna, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much, Jan, for invitation and introduction. It's a kind of a great honor, and it's also very interesting for me to have these comparative insights through presentations of my colleagues. I still hope that you have the juice to stay with me for another couple of minutes to hear about insights from our ongoing projects. So it's still work in progress. And also this project has a comparative perspective on refugee entrepreneurship across the EU. And this comparative perspective is implemented with the help of my Civica partners from Warsaw and Stockholm's business schools and European University Institute in Florence. But today I will focus more on Austria and specifically even more on a case of Vienna city when I will talk about integration of Ukrainian forced migrants through entrepreneurship. So let me also set the stage by giving you a little bit of ideas and numbers about the case of Austria and its position. We have already saw that map in Ružica presentation. Here you can see in the on the map that Austria in terms of colors, but also numbers, is relatively average country in terms of hosting Ukrainian forced migrants. It's host about 58 thousands of Ukrainian forced migrants, and its ratio to 1,000 people is 8,9. And the other thing is that probably important because of kind of federal nature of the country, but also because of differences in urban and rural ways of integration. The great majority of Ukrainians, about reduced rate about 40%, is situated, located in Vienna, in the capital city. So in terms of who are Ukrainians, forced migrant Ukrainians who are in Austria, let me point just to another study that Jan conducted with my colleagues from Vienna University of Economics and Business, that these are very highly skilled migrants that decided to stay in Austria and to look for hostage in Austria. And this is kind of general trend that Jan and his co-authors were able to demonstrate in that study. So far, the Ukrainian moved to the West, more highly qualified they have been. And Austria numbers are here in the light blue bubble. And you see that in terms of all, but also gendered human capital representation, Austria bubble is the highest in comparison to Poland or to the situation in Ukraine. So the integration approach of Austrian government and local authorities was first of all focused on integration through dependent labor. Means that Ukrainians were encouraged on their own try to integrate as employees, and until now, we have about 40% of Ukrainians being employed at Austrian or international companies. However, the statistics also showed that this is usually low-skilled or temporarily or seasonal employment that dominates that number. And Vienna, in terms of integration, score below the average. So the majority of Ukrainians is integrated into this dependent labor market in those areas that are rather touristic. And this again supports this temporality and seasonal character of their employment. We, in our Re-Emerge project, found it striking that the Austrian approach to integration of Ukrainian forced migrants somehow disregard, in fact, not only the high quality of education and skills that they bring, but also entrepreneurial nature and experiences that these migrants have. And here is just a kind of a small reference to global entrepreneurship monitors that demonstrate above the average very high scores for Ukrainian case. And in fact, we know that entrepreneurship is very popular type of activity in Ukraine, which can be done as individual, separate business, but also usually or very frequently is done in parallel to dependent labor employment in Ukraine. So in our Re-Emerge project, we want to look more into this entrepreneurship dimension of integration, look for drivers and motivation for economic entrepreneurship among those Ukrainian forced migrants in Austria that started already to register their business or indicated the interest to do this. And two further goals of our research project came into the process of actually engaging with our topic. We recognized that in addition to a kind of business commercial entrepreneurship, our object of analysis, our respondents are engaged in civic society activities. And so we wanted to know more about this civic engagement and how it interrelates and interacts with their economic entrepreneurship aspirations and activities. For this, we started with desk research, but combined also with field research and semi-structured interviews that we conducted mainly in Vienna, but also in some cities in Austria. And probably what is interesting and again to see about this group of Ukrainian forced migrants that in column 2, in addition to their entrepreneurial features and backgrounds, they indicated their civil society participation activities. So in terms of motivation for entrepreneurship, we see that it's much more than just making money. Usually our respondents indicated that entrepreneurship is seen as a way to integrate in Austria in a more sustainable way. This is a channel for them to speed up integration while avoiding the skilling, which they associate with integration as employment. Then they want to kind of overcome the barriers to dependent labor because sometimes they're just not able to find appropriate job in accordance to their skilled. And another motivation for them relates to the legal integration into Austria and attempt to avoid a kind of temporality of the protection status that they have. So while dependent labor employment integration is not sufficient usually for them to get out of the temporality protection legal status, they see self-employment as a better opportunity to change their temporary protection legal residence to more long-term resident cards in Austria. But there is also more than just economic and legal migration and residence motivations there. We found out that entrepreneurship also is seen by them as a way to regain agency in the hosting countries outside of their countries and regain agency in order to do certain civic duty, to fulfill civic duties towards Ukraine that they feel. So to a certain extent, it's reinstallation of what they have been doing before in Ukraine, but also a kind of of certain civic tasks that they want to perform through entrepreneurship vis-a-vis Ukraine as a nation and vis-a-vis the state as the one that needs to be protected. And also civic dimension of this entrepreneurship vis-a-vis Ukrainian people in Ukraine, but also among displaced Ukrainians is visible there. However, they also indicated that until at least the moment of our interviews with them, they had difficulties to implement that entrepreneurship kind of drive into real activities. They, among the obstacles, they talk about very complex and restrictive regulatory environment in Austria for entrepreneurship and specifically for refugee and migrant entrepreneurship. The programs that exist in Austria for those groups of entrepreneurial kind of ideas are not very much tailored for Ukrainians migrant, and they actually kind of talked about limited support from such institutions as Chamber of Commerce or Integration Fund that were not, those programs were not tailored to highly qualified Ukrainians, forced migrants with entrepreneurial aspirations. And somewhat positive sites and experiences came from civil society and business hubs that tried to help Ukrainian forced migrants. Although those programs concentrated mainly in Vienna and less in Austrian provinces. So instead of economic and business entrepreneurship, many of our respondents turned to civic activities, and they saw the civic activities as again the way to regain their agency, but yet in a different way. So to a certain extent, they built upon their previous experiences in combining their business activities with civil society sector support or somehow participation, and upscaled their civil activities there while being in Austria. They see this engagement, civic engagement, as a way to avoid marginalization and also as a way to still fulfills their civic duty vis-a-vis Ukraine as a country and vis-a-vis Ukrainian people in Ukraine and here in Austria. However, they still recognize that this civic activism is rather a trajectory to entrepreneurship, to commercial entrepreneurship sooner or later, and not the end goal of their activities or how they see their integration in Austria. So they pointed to ad hoc nature of this civic engagement and activity that would eventually lead to entrepreneurship and will remain there, but at a lower scale. So what they used for civic activism through from their entrepreneurial backgrounds are, first of all, a kind of certain models and patterns of actions, experiences and networks in business and commercial activities that they then applied to management of civic activities. But there have been certain drawbacks related to resources and networks which they lacked apparently in Austria and in Austrian ecosystems. And in other turns, they also pointed that this civic activism activities, despite their temporary nature, have some benefits for their entrepreneurship projects, ideas, and models, so that they sometimes got some ideas of business through their civic engagement, or they change the model of their initial business idea to incorporate more this social and civic component. And they relied also on these civic networks and resources that gain, to transfer those resources to kind of integrate them into their commercial and business activities. So let me kind of sum up a couple of results. So we observed among those entrepreneurs, which I usually think as a kind of business rational actors, civic activism that is driven more by some kind of pragmatic decisions and pragmatic rationality, because limitations to their commercial activities, but at the same time, this civic activism has also very strong social component. It's a society-oriented agency that is present there, and but however, it's rather intermediate and a kind of temporary activity that, however, will have a longer-term effects on the businesses that they will establish or are going to evolve. So we also recognize that it seems like migrant civil society were the first one who reacted to this entrepreneurship drive and attempts of Ukrainian forced migrants to integrate into entrepreneurial ecosystems in Austria and in Vienna particularly. So we suggest that this is probably the way to go further, so that local ecosystems and programs should integrate or build partnerships with migrant civil society organizations to take them as multipliers for Ukrainian forced migrants interested in entrepreneurship activities. And then the other point is that our respondents were able to navigate the process of registration. So what, however, they are in great need are more accelerators and hubs that would strengthen their access to resources and networks in Austrian entrepreneurial ecosystems. So in terms of activities, there is a big need in programs that would kind of target that particular stage, more advanced stage of entrepreneurial activities. And then the last point is that while due to this kind of duality in commercial activities and civic activism, we have social entrepreneurship as a result. So eventually those programs that would support or could support Ukrainian forced migrants, migrant entrepreneurs could take this model of business into account and tailor their offer and programs to the social component in their business activities. And then another point that eventually this support would also need to take into account that the main obstacle, one of the main obstacles will relate, or challenges will relate to the capital kind of availability for Ukrainian forced entrepreneurs. And so these support programs will need to provide more knowledge about less capital intensive business model of activities, or such activities as crowd funding. So this is our preliminary suggestions there. Migrant civil society, acceleration, and social and low capital intensive model of businesses is the knowledge and a kind of support systems that Ukrainian forced migrants would benefit most in Austria. With this, I stop my presentation and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Inna. Yeah, I guess now we can move smoothly to Q&A session. I guess we can start with the same order because This is the order also of the questions that have arisen, and also this will enable you to think about questions for Inna, who just delivered the presentation, just finished it. And the first questions were directed to Ružica. I think first was Victor. Yes, Victor, if you are here still, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you. And thanks. I was just interested in this finding in the last slide of the presentation that mentioned that possibly migrants, specifically like perception of space and distances, might impact their I don't exactly remember how it was phrased there, but their outcomes. And this, I think there was a mentioning of the size of countries also. Maybe you could tell us a bit more about this, and sorry if I kind of misconstrued the meaning, but I'd be happy to hear more about this. Thank you.
Rosita?
I might, Jan, thanks for all the questions. I was trying to be on both sides and then also add more in the Q&A session. What I wanted to, a couple of things in terms of physical distance, and I want to relate it also to the research we've done on other immigrants in Croatia. So when it comes to the local population, yes, of course, Croatia is rather an immigrant country, and it's been for ages. That is what we know. But when it comes to the in-country mobility, it's quite restricted. Croats are not willing actually to change places for work purposes. And contrary to that, when it comes to Ukrainians and other also immigrants in Croatia, it's quite the opposite. They are willing to do so, not only within Croatia, but also within other countries. And when we talked about Ukrainian entrepreneurs, we would ask them, how do you deal with work shortages and finding new employees? And they would answer very quickly saying that if they don't find easily one within their network in Croatia, they then target their colleagues or friends or relatives that are mostly in Europe. And if they find this offer interesting, then they usually do find, they jump over to Croatia. So they didn't think it would be a huge issue or a burden for their business. And of course, when it comes to the private sphere, technology is a big help, but also with the time, same with other immigrants, they mentioned that they don't feel that reliant anymore solely on their network with their people from their home country, but also relying more and more on all those both digital online and personal networks that they developed over time. And that in a way compensates for what they miss in terms of emotional part, but also in terms of practical information from back home. So maybe I can also jump to the other question, Jan, or because it's quite related, and I'm glad.
Yeah. This was just. This was the Tiana question, yeah.
Yeah, there was one, and then there was a question on the attitude of Croatian citizens toward third country nationals. So I may pick both.
So Paulina's and Tiana's questions, yes?
Okay, and then if I miss something, they can still add it in the chat box.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, what I will, so just now focusing again on the case of Ukrainian refugees in Croatia. As Natalia mentioned, 90% of them were rather opportunity rather than necessity entrepreneurs. So in terms of predicting their success, business success, that means quite a lot, same as with native entrepreneurs. But I also want to point out one more detail, and that is the commitment to their business that they, among other things, showed by investing quite significant amounts of money. They had it either in their savings or they sold their real estates or anything they had back in Ukraine. So when we asked them, so you're planning to stay here, and they say, yeah, I would love to stay in Croatia. And I mean, that's the way I showed. So I did sell my apartment back home and my car just to be able to invest in business here. And also considering the real estate prices in Croatia, they would also like to buy something, the place to live with, but most of them still need to rent the place. But that's again about the local conditions. Then when it comes to the attitude about Croatian citizens, yeah, unfortunately, according to Eurobarometer and many other surveys, Croatian citizens are still rather closed-minded when it comes to the third country nationals, and particularly the ones with a different skin color. And there are no meritocratic criteria about it. It's just very negative attitude, and most of them would say that they do not consider the immigration to be an opportunity for their country. But also we are on top of the list. I'm not happy that we are on that top of the list when asking the citizens how much do they actually know about the immigration and third country nationals. So it's sort of a Dunning-Kruger syndrome, not knowing anything or very small about something, but knowing it's not good for you. Luckily for Ukrainians, they're white colored, and one more thing for them is many of them learn Croatian, learn it very fast, and they're committed to it. The ones who didn't have time to go to the courses, they did their best by using YouTube, just also to learn the alphabet, to learn the pronunciation, and to listen to Croatian. So I guess that's another thing. But yes, when it comes to the lower qualified, dark-skinned people working in Croatia and being heavily exposed because they work either in delivery or as taxi drivers, there are more issues that are not necessarily welcoming comparing to Ukrainian refugees. So I hoped I did briefly answered the two that I had in mind.
Okay, thank you. I guess those who asked the questions to Regisa, do you need some additional clarification, or maybe you have some comments to these questions
I
and
just wanted to
answers?
say thank you for the answer. It's comprehensive. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lina and Tatiana? I guess they are happy.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the answer.
Okay, thanks. So now let's move to Gianluca. Gianluca, you had a question from
Olga.
Olga, maybe you are here. You could ask it in person, or is Olga with us?
Yeah.
Okay, could you repeat the question?
Nice to meet
I
you.
was just curious why and how it is perceived that migration is starting a business as a migrant is considered integration. In what way it is perceived?
Yeah. You know, I try to go through the answer I typed, and yeah, so starting a business helps, I think, migrants earn, connect, and contribute within their host country in meaningful ways. Because starting a business, you know, they can, I think, meet new people, find new partners. So I think this is a kind of integration. But as I also said, and I think it's also your opinion, sometimes starting a business is just about survival because there is no way out to live because they need, you know, of course, a salary to pay their expenses and so on. And sometimes it's really hard for them to get hired by firms because of prejudices. So this you know, there is no end out, so they need to create their own venture. So yeah, there are, let's say, different viewpoints to see how and why migrants start their own ventures. So, but actually, I think it's, yeah, when they create a new one, it's of course something that, yeah, can also prove, can also create, you know, when a migrant create a firm, I think it gets also admiration, maybe from somebody. I don't know. It might be possible. I would admire a migrant creating, you know, something innovative and starting out a firm, even if they sell out, you know, ethnical products uh, it's, I don't know, an ethnic restaurant. I think it's always a good way to make business and create profit. And yeah, find their own place in the world, in the city.
Okay. Um,
Thank you for the answer.
okay.
Thank you.
So, and Alexandra, are you still here? Because you had questions to Keina?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, so you maybe ask by yourself.
Okay, so
in person.
My first question considers self-segregation. So I heard that in urban areas, especially, people voluntarily self-segregate into certain districts. And I wonder if the case is similar in rural areas. And my second question considers one of the El Pais headlines that were in one of the slides, which particularly wrote made me think. As you, Jan, mentioned, migration is actually significant to our economic growth. However, as many European countries are tightening immigration restrictions, I also wonder, given Europe's aging population and shrinking workforce, what economic risks could arise from further limiting migration, and how will the future of migration in Europe look like?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexandra. Thank you for your questions. They are without a doubt highly relevant to the topics I presented. Regarding the first, about whether self-segregation is less common in rural areas compared to urban centers, this was actually one of the key issues that came up during our fieldwork as well. We conducted research in municipalities of various sizes, ranging from as small as 50 inhabitants to up to 9,000. And yes, in smaller communities, the chances of interaction and informal encounters might be higher, simply because you run into your neighbors more often. However, what we found especially important is the presence of an active social environment. And this is what I tried to highlight in my presentation. In those places where there was a strong sense of community and ongoing civic engagement, people were more likely to come together and maintain those connections over time. For instance, the case of Arenillas, a very small village also in the province of Soria. In Arenillas, the town council holds open meetings that actively involve the neighbors. They also implement participatory budgeting, the municipal budget, allowing the residents to have like a direct say, right? A direct say in how public funds are invested and which community projects are prioritized. So this kind of participatory social framework creates, to some point, a strong sense of community and a kind of shared responsibility. And it encourages people, both long-term residents and those of migrant origin, to engage regularly with one another. And as a result of these interactions, one could say that, well, I guess at least that could help to reduce social isolation. No? So what really makes a difference is whether there are shared goals and a common sense of purpose regarding the place where people live. That's why towards the end of our research, we placed a special emphasis on the feeling of belonging. And in villages with more vibrant social life, opportunities to connect, share an identity with the place were clearly greater, we could observe how the feeling of belonging played an important role in these new dynamics compared to urban context. Now, the second question is a bit more complex, I guess, and I must admit that economic dimensions are not exactly my area of expertise. However, what I can share is that in the case of Spain, the current government has adopted a more receptive migration policy compared to some other European countries. Probably you know. This policy highlights the functional role of migration in supporting the labor market, the economic needs of Spain, the pensions, as this El País, the newspaper highlighted, right, the welfare state. And among the criticisms raised is the issue I mentioned earlier in my presentation about the instrumentalization of migration. And also connected to this is the neglect of migrants' rights, the lack of recognition of their realities and the unequal conditions they face when it comes to, for instance, political participation. In Spain, migrants do not have political rights to participate in the election system unless there are some bilateral recognitions that only 12 countries have this kind of agreements, bilateral agreements with Spain. So we are more critical when we start to compare what kind of social political conditions migrants have to live here in Spain, right? In fact, Spain's last national integration plan ended in 2014, so almost more than 10 years ago. And since then, there hasn't been a new one put in place. So clearly, economic priorities are being placed above social ones. And this is the point we are more critical with the Spanish policy framework. I hope I'm answering your question.
Yes, thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you. Thank you to your questions.
So thanks, Kaina. I think we have now a question to Konrad.
Yes, and that's me again. So I'm wondering if I don't know if I missed it. I wonder if there is any research considering Latin American migrants and their integration into Polish society and Polish job market. It's a quite recent trend that we have some influx of migrants from that area into Poland. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alexandra, for this question. You're very right. There is quite dynamic. I was focusing on, in my presentation, showing you some of the findings from concerning agents, since this was a subject I worked on in last weeks. But you're right, there's a very dynamic increase in the number of Latin Americans coming to Poland. We have covered in different research projects some elements of this influx. You may, for example, see the study which we conducted within the Małopolska Open Małopolska sort of project, where we looked on Tarnów, Nowy Sącz, Oświęcim, and Olkusz, and Jan Brzozowski was responsible for Nowy Sącz, where there is a particularly high increase in the number of Colombians coming to this particular location. But generally, Colombians were the group which was also visible a significant increase of these migrants also in other parts of the country due to very sort of fairly liberal visa regulations concerning this particular group, and they were coming in very large numbers. And there are also migrants from other countries. So we have looked into their presence in some localities such as Krakow or Nowy Sącz, but there hasn't been, as far as I know, and Jan may correct me, some comprehensive study on their presence. One of the good occasions to discuss this topic will be a conference which Kaspar will be holding together with Małopolski Office for Labor, and which is part of one of the projects carried out within the center, which is the project is led by Professor Stonaski, and it's devoted to Venezuelan refugees. But within this project, there will be also discussion on the Latin American presence in Poland. So if you need some information, I'm more than happy to then send it to you. And Jan may say a little bit more on this project because he's directly involved with it.
Thank you very much for your answer. I will be happy to reach out to you later. Thanks. Thank you very much once again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to take more time on this. I think we should talk bilaterally, so I would be glad to even send you some papers that we have published on this topic. Mm-hmm. Yes, I fully agree. This is a new, very important sending region, and I think it has a very big potential in the future. So definitely this topic should be studied, not only from Polish perspective. I mean, Keina probably could support me, but in Galicia I have seen lots of Latin Americans, and not only, for instance, lots of Venezuelans, but also Brazilians and so on. Yeah. Okay, now I was already sending this question to Inna in a chat. So maybe you could say something about this future plans of the Ukrainian refugees in Austria. How are there any studies conducted in this topic?
So I'm not aware of specific studies that would do it deeply for Austria only, but nevertheless there are attempts from Ukrainian side to grasp the sentiment of Ukrainian forced migrants in the EU with specific focus on their willingness or plans to return. This survey have been conducted by Center for European Strategy, for Economic Strategy in Kiev, and it's a third wave surveys that we have at the moment. And as far as data showed, the number or the share of Ukrainians that want to stay in their host countries and are satisfied with life is increasing from wave to wave. There are still divergences there, and for example, Ukrainians from UK, US, and France and Poland are more willing or indicate their plans to return to Ukraine of a higher share, while those one who are in Austria and Germany are rather planning, and the number is increasing from wave to wave to stay. That's why we also saw the change in the way how Ukrainian government is planning to approach Ukrainians abroad, and the Ministry of National Unity that was established just recently issued its concept paper, which in the process of its discussion was mainly focused on returnees and how to get Ukrainians return. The published concept already involve two other aims. One is how to sustain and kind of develop connections between Ukraine and Ukrainians abroad, and how to communicate, what kind of strategic communication and advocacy for Ukrainians abroad Ukrainian state should to aim to provide. So we clearly see that this tendency to stay is acknowledged by Ukrainian government and is something that also host societies and governments of the host countries needs to increasingly take into account because there have been, for example, a lot of discussion about changing this temporary protection legal status in something more kind of long term, or at least that this option is given. But at the moment, this is still not clear whether these debates will be really implemented. And in terms of integration, so probably this is another question to discuss and to explore more if we are talking about integration into labor market. So whether dependent or this entrepreneurial integration would be more positive in terms of kind of keeping connections to Ukraine and helping those Ukrainians who are abroad still help Ukraine somehow to, for example, to manage its recovery, to contribute especially to local dimension of recovery, to the regions from where these Ukrainian refugees are coming from or have certain roots. And in this sense, probably entrepreneurship has a better chance to be kind of more fruitful for these connections, to have some fruits also for Ukraine and Ukraine economy. As these entrepreneurial ideas, they built in many cases on these transnational networks to Ukraine, either in terms of business models and ideas that are transferred, or even in practical models of their supply chains. Yes. But probably this is something also that Jan, you in your research on entrepreneurs in Krakow recognize that they have this transnational nature, and once this transnational nature would help to keep connection to Ukraine even while the intentions to stay in their host countries and host societies increase over time, which is very natural development, in fact.
Great. Thank you so much for this answer. And although we should finalize our meeting, but we still have one additional question from Róžica to Konrad on migration strategy. Róžica, could you?
Hi again, Konrad. So we've heard that Poland recently actually adopted a migration strategy, and many of your scientists were included in producing it. So I wanted to know, and I consider it highly relevant for this topic, how does the implementation actually look in practice? And in addition to that, and I've seen your response, can you present any lessons learned? Because Croatia, as many other countries as well, are usually criticized for need and actually for the deficit of any migration strategy or any integration and migration systemic approach. So if you can share with us something that we could easily learn, some quick wins.
Okay, thank you very much for this question. Yeah, it is very highly relevant. I still believe that it is good to have a migration strategy. I'm not sure that this particular migration strategy, which was implemented in Poland, is right one. It's and the way the process, how it has been constructed, also was very problematic. We were, as you rightly pointed out, as academics, as members of the Polish Academy of Science, Committee for Migration Research, me and Jan, and maybe some other colleagues who are participating in today's seminar, were directly involved in the process of collecting kind of suggestions, surveying various stakeholders, and trying to positively contribute to these changes. Unfortunately, a lot of our ideas were not taken into account. The strategy, the overall character of the strategy was very much focused on security. It had to say a lot about the irregular migration and the problems at the Polish-Belarusian border. And in a way, this securitization sort of trend took over the whole document. So this was one of the key issues with it, that it did not enough in the first place talked about various positives of migration and possible ideas of improvement. And I believe one of the topics which in a way was not appropriately developed in the strategy was the key issue, which is the issue of integration, and also the role of the centers for integration of migrants within this strategy. There is a mention of the centers within the strategy, but it is not being treated adequately. And what we see in the last months, the implementation documents are coming very much in line with this idea of improving security. But this security, it's, I believe, largely wrongly understood, and not necessarily the implementation documents are not necessarily solving the problems, but potentially may create problems. And this is, for example, what we already see issues with the speeding up procedures of legalizations of status. This is not being properly or adequately addressed. There needs to be more manpower, needs to be more better solutions to speed up this process. And for example, some of the implementation documents is they concern migrants in secondary and higher education, and the regulations which came recently are making this presence of foreigners within the education sort of sector increasingly problematic, and we do not know yet the result of these regulations, but I expect that the number of, for example, foreigners who are coming to study to Poland as a result of this regulations concerning, for example, linguistic skills may influence negatively the process of internationalization of the Polish education. So these are some of the things. I believe we have no time to discuss things in more detail. But thanks for this question, and it's worth watching the implementation documents coming into force as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I guess we are all much over the time. Thank you for your patience and for staying with us for so long. But I think it was worth it. Really a very interesting event. As you know, we are recording the event, and this event will be made accessible both on the YouTube channel of our center, and also probably on the, definitely we'll check the technicalities, but on the webpage of our pro-mote project. So basically, just to summarize, I think we had a very interesting perspective from all those 5 countries, although slightly different ones, and rightly pointed out by some of the participants from the audience. Of course, these case studies do not fully represent the entire experiences of migrants integration of European Union. I think we should have much more meetings like that to present other case studies and other nationalities of migrants and forced migrants as well. So I would like first of all to thank all the presenters for devoting their time to share with us those very interesting results of your research. And I don't know, Mirela, maybe you would like to add something, some technicalities.
Also, I'm really thankful to all of you and to our audience. It was really a great event. Yes, we will share the recording on our website, and also we will send you a follow-up email with links also to this service that we are conducting. And yeah, it was great event, and I hope that you will follow us and see what the other activities that we are going to prepare in scope of PRO-MOTE project. Thank you, everyone, and Jan, to you especially.
The most important are our fantastic speakers. I did nothing. They worked and they delivered fantastic really presentations. So many thanks to all of you, and hope to see you soon on different events, either on site or online, preferably on site, so we can some of us finally meet in person. So see you soon, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.